The very invention of cinema was an act of trying to capture time. With the Lumiere brothers, A Train Arrives, which captured footage of a train arriving at a platform, making its audiences jump in its seats as if a real train had arrived. Time is an intrinsic and important part of the art of cinema, but two directors specifically come to mind when one thinks of the exploration of time in film: Christopher Nolan and Andrei Tarkovsky. Both as varied in their filmmaking from each other as any directors one could think of, and yet this obsession with time binds them together. This video looks at how the two use cinema in their own different ways to explore temporality.
Sammy can't remember anything for more than a couple of minutes.
Christopher Nolan's obsession with time runs throughout his entire filmography. Time can be perceived subjectively by different people. An hour talking to a friend can feel shorter than 10 minutes of a lecture. But does this mean time flows differently for different people? In films, time can be shaped to suit the needs of the filmmaker, to evoke certain feelings from people. To show a character getting bored of waiting, leave a long shot.
Sorry you've been waiting 26 hours. It's just gonna be another 5 minutes.
Okie dokie.
To show a character having the time of their life, cut quickly. The editing in a film can influence how time feels to a viewer, but it usually moves in one direction. Nolan, however, goes one step ahead. Nolan is always interested in challenging the hegemonic nature of time. Nolan's manipulation of time challenges our understanding of it and its so-called absolute march. It plays with the idea that time can only go forwards. But how does Nolan do this?
Time is the most cinematic of subjects, because before the movie camera came along, human beings had no way of seeing time backwards, slowed down, sped up. And I think that went some way to sort of explain to me why I've been interested in exploring it in movies.
By telling us that time can be reversed, turned around, slowed down, sped up, etc., Nolan is making us aware of the nature of time and turning the film into an exploration of what time could have been had it been a tangible dimension. In films like Interstellar, Nolan talks directly about time as a dimension.
Time is relative, okay? It can stretch and it can squeeze, but it can't run backwards.
But to them, time might be another physical dimension. But to us, it's not, okay?
Even in films where temporality or its manipulation isn't the main theme, like in Inception, Tenet, Memento, and Interstellar, Nolan still plays with the linear progression of time to give us a non-linear timeline, as in Following, which has Nolan cross-cutting between 4 different timelines, and The Prestige, where Nolan uses diaries to cut between timelines. In Memento, Nolan juxtaposes the confusion of the character onto us. At the beginning, we are in the same place as Lenny.
Since my injury, I can't make new memories. Everything fades. I've told you this before, haven't I?
As Lenny, who has short-term memory loss, doesn't know what came before, neither do we. However, unlike Lenny, when one piece of the puzzle is offered to us, we can remember it. Nolan often uses time in conjunction with memory. In Memento's case, our perception of time is ostensibly linked with our perception of memory.
The cops don't catch a killer by sitting around remembering stuff.
Right.
They collect facts.
That's not what I'm
They
saying.
make notes and they draw conclusions. Facts, not memories. Look, memory can change the shape of a room, it can change the color of a car. And memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation, they're not a record.
Lenny's memories dictate the passage of time and our experience of it.
How am I supposed to heal if I can't feel time?
The flow of time in Inception is also linked to dreams, which are a subjective perspective of the character. Dreams and memories alter how we feel time. A scary dream can feel like it's going on forever, and certain memories feel like they happened years ago, when they might have just been a week old. In a similar way, Nolan seems to be stating that film as a form allows the director to shape the path of time. Here's another striking use of non-linearity by Nolan. He uses this technique not just as a commentary on time, but also to amp up tension in film, by withholding information from the viewer. What this does is create a structure that keeps audiences watching in rapt attention. In Dunkirk, Nolan cuts between 3 events moving at different speeds of time, which appear to move at the same speed for us. With this, Nolan seems to be saying that the flow of time depends on our perception of it. That is to say, time flows differently for different people. When put this way, the subjectivity of time that Nolan employs seems to be strikingly similar to the way Andrei Tarkovsky uses time in his films. Andrei Tarkovsky literally wrote the book on time and film. His book called Sculpting in Time lays down his ideas of the philosophy of art, more specifically of filmmaking. A film is made up of shots. Putting these shots together one after the other allows the filmmaker to create something that is more than the sum of its parts. For example, a shot of a man looking at something is simply that, and a shot of an object in isolation is just an object. However, putting the two together, you have a relationship between the two. The man is looking at the object. Notice nothing in the frame itself reveals that the man is looking at the object. We do not ever see that the man and the object are in one frame. We don't even know how far the object is or if it is even there. But we know he's looking at it because of the cut. Together, these shots create cinematic grammar. But what is a shot? A shot is an uninterrupted flow of time. When the flow of time is interrupted, we call that a cut. If you imagine these shots as lumps of time, similar to a lump of marble or clay, one can imagine the director sculpting the lump to create, through editing shots together, their vision of time. For Tarkovsky, time was the central part of the cinematic experience. He considered it the work of the filmmaker to exploit artistically the one precious potential of cinema, the possibility of printing on celluloid the actuality of time. That was the essence of a director's work. The director engaged in sculpting in time, taking a lump of time and trimming off things that he does not need, and thus sculpting a film from time itself. Tarkovsky experimented in his quest for printing time on celluloid through what he considered cinema's most basic element, observation. Tarkovsky's camera is famous for its meandering, lingering behavior. The tracking shots are deliberately slow, with the camera moving as if with great purpose and thought. But why does Tarkovsky do this? Is it to bore away those who were expecting mainstream cinema? Perhaps. But the point of these shots is to observe, to look carefully at the texture of the objects in the frame, and to imprint them, not just in the film, but also in the memory of the viewers. To take in a moment in time and immortalize it. How else is one to truly experience time if not through the passage of time itself? But Tarkovsky isn't interested in documenting time. He's more interested, in a similar vein to Nolan, in capturing the essence of time, or its perception by a person. In much the same way that Nolan wants to explore the perception of time, Tarkovsky too wants to do this. But while the former does it explicitly, Tarkovsky's methods are instead implicit. He would be more interested in how a person felt time pass by while walking through a room, for example, than whether that time itself can be reversed, sped up, etc. That, in my understanding, is what he means by capturing the essence of time. Here, for example, Tarkovsky could have very easily cut from him starting to walk to where he walked to. But he's more interested in making you feel the time it took to walk the whole way instead. This is why this scene from Nostalgia is so famous. The magnitude of the task at hand, which is to carry a lit candle across from one side to the next, the effort of the task must be felt in the time it takes to do it. To feel time passing by, watching, hopefully, and praying that this time Andrei makes it through to the other side. No cuts whatsoever. Perhaps this is what Godard meant when he said cinema is truth 24 frames per second and every cut is a lie. Perhaps the cut is a lie because it interrupts the flow of time and gives you something artificial, man-made, instead of the truth as it was. It is interesting to note how close Tarkovsky's and Nolan's thoughts are about the uniqueness of cinema. In fact, this is not all that Nolan and Tarkovsky seem to agree on. There is also their interest in photographing hands. As well as their thoughts about the relationship of memory and time. And while Nolan seems to be using time as a tool of structure to question its form, Tarkovsky instead aimed to capture time itself imprinted on film. While Nolan interrupts time, challenges its authority, fights it, twists it around to fit whatever he wants it to fit, Tarkovsky lets time flow through unopposed, letting it breathe through his film and leave its imprints on every frame. Nolan and Tarkovsky are both stalwarts in their own brands of cinema, connected by the same obsession, with exploring the ways to capture time itself on celluloid.